Today, we're going to be looking at pen testing as a service. Pen testing and offensive security have really been the cornerstone of our efforts and approaches to identify and assess exposure in our environments. But over my almost 20 years in cybersecurity, it hasn't changed a huge amount. Some of the tools have changed, some of the scope and target and objectives may have changed, but it's still objective-based testing done either on an ad hoc or annual schedule, and really all based around the output of a PDF report that is never ever fully actioned. And we'll touch upon that in a second. We very much need to evolve this if we're going to be successful. And this is where pen testing as a service comes in. So just really covering off what we're going to touch upon today. I'm going to set the scene in terms of the pen testing landscape, some of the challenges that we face, and I suppose starting to answer the question why we need to look at pen testing as a service. And then Brian will walk us through the ins and outs of pen testing as a service, or PTaaS, or PT as a service. And then colleague Dima will bring it all to life in a real world, or in the real world, with a demo of a pen testing as a service portal, and really the approach of how it evolves what we do right now into what we really should be doing. So let me do the formal introduction to our panelists today. If we could jump on the next slide, Brian. Thank you very much. So I'm joined today by Brian Martin. Brian is our Director of Product Management in Integrity 360. And he's responsible for managing and developing our entire group's portfolio of cybersecurity services and solutions. Brian has extensive experience in his career across IT, software development, in telecoms, networking, and beyond, and actually over 10 years focused on cybersecurity alone, and that's covering all aspects. Currently, Brian is very much focused on developing our exposure management portfolio, so no better person to lead us through this. And then we're also joined by Dima. Dima is one of our team leads and a senior penetration tester in our cybersecurity testing team. Dima has been exploring the realms of penetration testing for over a decade now, gaining extensive experience across various facets of cybersecurity. He's honed his expertise in conducting infrastructure and application pen tests, evaluating the security of mobile applications, and carrying out social engineering assessments. He's also one of our leads on our pen testing as a service portal. And again, no better person to help us walk through this and bring this to life. So let's have a look at some of the pen testing stats that we have to really set the scene. If we can move on to the next slide there, Brian. So this really sets the scene and actually, sorry, we just had a poll that I forgot to bring up. We have a poll just to cover off, how often do you need to conduct pen tests? Please have a look at that poll and answer as we go through. So if we're looking at the stats that we have here that really sets the scene on on pen testing, on offensive security, as I said, identifying and assessing exposures. Well, thankfully, 94% of organizations view pen testing as essential, which thankfully matches to what I said at the very start. I would question what that 6% view, but that's obviously a topic for another day and looking at very much the niche. 14 days is the SLA of 75% of organizations to fix pen test findings. But conversely to that, 48%, so less than half of all findings ever get resolved. And really that kind of links to what I said at the start of getting a PDF output, organizations really looking at focusing on maybe the top few and then putting that to bed and then rinsing, repeating on their schedule. The mean time to resolve for those in that 52%, most pen test findings is 5 times longer than the SLA. And although I mentioned focusing on a few key findings to resolve, only 55% of serious findings get resolved. So we've got a huge gap. So you could ask, of that 94% that view it as essential, Clearly not all of those, and this is all from one study. So we're getting a view and the deep dive on that organizations that were surveyed. But clearly not all of them are actioning and following it through and getting the value out of their pen tests. So if we look at also, how often does your organization conduct pen tests, which is probably why I should have launched that poll before we jumped into this slide, not to influence any results. But the vast majority view it as either a quarterly activity or an annual activity, with less and less looking at more monthly or continuously overall. So let's have a look at why we should be conducting cybersecurity testing. Well, a lot of it really revolves around actually vulnerabilities, and that has been increasing year on year. So if we get back to the probably mid to earlier days of my career in cybersecurity, we see it's pretty flat in terms of growth of vulnerabilities until we get to 2017. And obviously, that there was potentially a linkage there of when WannaCry hit, which probably opened our eyes up a fair amount. But we've seen a pretty steady and then increasing number of vulnerabilities. But I guess the question is, if we look at 2024, so last year, how does that look? Well, actually, there's an almost 40% increase in CVE, so vulnerabilities being identified there. So we're seeing quite a big jump, and we expect that to very much continue. And the reason for that is very much the expanded attack surface. So if we look at what we're needing to protect, or what we need to protect, and what we need to test and analyze, particularly when we look back, 2009 and beyond there, we're quite limited in what we're viewing in terms of our IT infrastructure. But this has grown, hugely, beyond exponentially, as we now need to be concerned about our cloud environments, our web and SaaS applications. We're looking at our different structured, unstructured data. In addition to the cloud, we've also got our private cloud, our on-prem that hasn't gone away. The move to mobile apps, as I sort of spoke about in terms of Dma's experience, moving a lot to testing those mobile apps. And we also have remote workers working from anywhere. And then lastly, although it's always been a challenge, but increasingly come in focus with a lot of the successful attacks, we also have OT and IoT environments. So there's a huge expanded attack surface, which definitely will have some implication on the number of vulnerabilities, but very much that we need to cover these off. And that's actually called out in some of the key frameworks and standards that we need to be able to understand, identify, assess where our vulnerabilities are, regardless of whether it's ISO 27000, whether we're looking at NIST, PCI for those in the payments world, but also the CIS, top security controls, Cyber Essentials, HIPAA, and many more. So that's it in terms of an introduction to cybersecurity testing, vulnerability world. And I'll hand over to Brian to talk through, extend that out, and start building out the work towards pen testing as a service.
Rich, and just to build on the increasing vulnerabilities, it's not just about externally facing assets, because as we all know, based on the work of the within the Dmytro attack framework, that you can have vulnerabilities and exposures throughout the environment, through all sorts of infrastructure. And in fact, that's exactly what attackers do. They chain exposures to build their attack paths. So whilst they might initially gain initial access through an externally facing vulnerability or exposure, then they use a whole series of exposures to perform their privilege escalation, lateral movement, and ultimately compromise the environment. So what cybersecurity testing does is enables organizations to fully understand the exposure across the entire attack path, hence the requirement for more rigorous and continuous testing. So loads of benefits of cybersecurity testing: better understanding of the attack surface, knowledge of threats and how to mitigate them, prioritizing your remediation, better awareness of security in the organization, validating security controls, finding the weaknesses before the adversary. The compliance that Rich mentioned is always top of mind as well. And ultimately, it's about proactive risk reduction. That's really what cybersecurity testing is all about. So I'm very curious, Rich, about the poll you ran there. Just before we move on to pen testing as a service, what is the current frequency that we're seeing in terms of people requiring for their pen testing?
Unmute myself. So by far, the majority of people that responded are doing their pen testing annually, by more than 50% of our respondees, and very close to the stats that we had. Quarterly is the very next one, but alongside that, on an equal number, is biannually, so every half yearly. So we can see from that there is quite a very few are doing it on a very regular basis, meaning that those exposures are being identified over a very long time frame, either quarterly, every 6 months, or 12 months, which I think can present a challenge.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Interesting statistics. And that leads me on to then just giving an overview of pen testing as a service. So I'd like to just launch a quick poll before we get into it, to test and understand the audience's experience. So if you could just answer the poll, what is your experience of pen testing as a service? Either none, or just learning about it, starting to use it, all the way up to using it for all of your pen testing requirements. So if you could just answer that, then it would be good to get a sense of where people are at on their PTaaS journey, if you like. So I'll move on then and start talking about maybe some of the challenges with the traditional methods of pen testing. And I've divided it up into 5 distinct challenges that we see and that the market sees, hence the rise of PTaaS that we're seeing out there. First one is, typically when you want to do a scoping exercise, generally it's advised that you use a third party to do your pen testing engagements, just from the point of view that if you're doing your own pen testing, then in effect you're testing your own homework. So it's best practice to get a third party, but then that you need to engage with those parties, you need to get a scoping exercise, you need to get quotations done, and negotiations and sign off commercially, etc., possibly look at a number of different providers, and that can all take a lot of time and effort. So that whole scoping process is one overhead associated with pen testing. Second is, interestingly, as Rich mentioned, with the results of the poll, running tests annually, biannually even, or even half yearly or whatever, quarterly, does leave long gaps between testing, and that can leave assets exposed, because very often applications and infrastructure is changing on a continuous basis, either deliberately or sometimes unbeknownst, and that can create an exposure that you're unaware of until the next testing cycle. Third one is inflexibility with rapid release cycles. So if you're on a regular, if you're on an annual or a semi-annual test cycle, but in the modern era, organizations are performing agile development. They're publishing new releases of applications on a very frequent basis, often in some cases weekly or less. Then that doesn't really line up with the long cycles of testing versus the rapidity of the release cycles within the environment. Next one is, we saw from the earlier stats that there is kind of a poor resolution, between critical findings. Only 55% of critical findings are actually getting resolved, and the lead time is way longer than what people are desiring to achieve. And a lot of that can be a lack of integration. You get the pen test, you get a report, but then what's the mobilization phase of actually getting the resolution performed? So because there's no integration into remediation workflows, that creates a lot of friction for resolution. And then again, you know, with the traditional methods, often there can be a lack of ongoing tracking of findings and resolutions, resulting in the same issue of either things taking too long or not getting resolved at all. In fact, Gartner have a recent report came out only last month, and they state that organizations conduct app penetration testing to address exposures in critical apps, but face challenges like adapting to change, the evolving threats, resource constraints, and compliance. So their recommendation is that cybersecurity leaders should adopt a continuous testing approach to effectively tackle the dynamic nature of threats. So, you know, they're calling out both the dynamic nature of the threat landscape, as well as and the fact that there's all these new vulnerabilities and exposures coming, but also the rapidity of the release cycles as well, as previously mentioned. So how does pen testing as a service address these challenges? So in terms of the scoping phases, then you can increase the reduce the overhead of scoping and the timelines through rapid scheduling of new test events via flexible SaaS-based interface, because that's one of the key things that you get with a PTaaS type service. The long gaps between testing is resolved through more regular and ongoing testing. The inflexibility with the rapid release cycles is improved because if a new release comes out, possibly with not a huge amount of notice because it's more of an iterative process, then it's very easy to self-schedule new test engagements as new release comes out. You can just go on to the portal, schedule your next test in line with the requirement based on the rapid release cycle. In terms of the integration into remediation workflows, because now you're actually working with a platform, that platform can be integrated, and you can pre-build your bi-directional integrations to push remediations into resolve or group workflows. So if in the organization you're using the likes of Jira or ServiceNow, ITSM type systems for mobilizing the remediation, then all of that you can directly, you know, push the finding and the recommendations into those systems and action those remediations immediately. And in terms of the lack of ongoing tracking and findings and resolutions, you get immediate visibility in PTaaS via the SaaS interface, and ongoing tracking is part of the subscription. So no longer do you have to dig around to find out, oh, where was that, you know, report that I got, you know, 3 months ago. It's all available to you in a single interface. So if you have to summarize then some of the kind of differences between the two. So in traditional pen testing, it's a project-based service. In pen testing, it's a subscription-based service. In pen testing as a service. In traditional testing, it's a once-off testing event and repeated periodically. With pen testing as a service, it's regular, ongoing pen testing. Instead of infrequent testing requirements, supports regular, ongoing testing requirements. Instead of manual-based request scheduling, it's self-scheduling according to your needs as they evolve throughout the year. Instead of once-off PDF-based reporting, you get a SaaS-based interface for ongoing viewing and tracking of findings with dashboards, etc., which we will see in a moment. Instead of point-in-time governance and coordination, typically you get an ongoing engagement on governance for the whole program as part of the subscription. Instead of paying per engagement, you pay under a subscription model. And then finally, traditional CSD is very human-led and human intensive, and pen testing as a service is human-led too, but there is increased use of tools and automation, which becomes more possible through the use of the platform and integrations that are available into the tooling, and so that can make the whole process more effective and efficient, albeit that you still have that human-led expert leading the whole process. So just before I go on to the use cases, I just want to take a quick look at the polls and see what the I'm going to find the poll answer here now.
Good job, Brian. I've got it up in front of me
Yeah.
now.
Could you jump in there and just give us the summary of the
Yeah, certainly.
role?
So, obviously, the question was around understanding experience of pen testing as a service, and there's two very much leading answers there. One is just learning about it. So, hopefully, we're helping evolve that thinking, and only just under that in terms of respondents was none. So again, I hope we're doing a good job of introducing the concept to help you improve your cybersecurity testing.
Thanks, Rich. Okay, interesting. So everyone quite early on the journey, which is hopefully good in terms of we're shedding some light on the whole topic. So who should consider PTaaS or pen testing as a service? What are the key use cases? So customers who have a heavy pen testing requirement, so not just a single annual test, who recognize that need. For example, customers releasing new application releases on a regular basis. Customers with a lot of ongoing infrastructure changes and updates. Maybe they're putting in place, doing waves of refreshes across the estate. Customers with demanding compliance requirements, or customers who wish to rotate their pen testing requirements across the estate to make it more manageable throughout the year. So not having a big bang approach, but rather rotating it around so that it's more of an ongoing process, which can also be helpful in terms of surfacing new exposures more rapidly throughout the environment. So I hope that gave a good introduction to the topic. And now I'm going to hand over to Dima, who's going to take us through the PTaaS portal. And we're going to give an example of our own one that we use. So over to you, Dima, and I'll just put up the slides, just giving the summary of what's in the portal.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. So a core component of our penetration testing as a service solution is the PTaaS portal, which actually acts as a central hub for collaboration, reporting, and real-time visibility of results. This platform significantly enhances the value of PTaaS product by streamlining engagement management, improving communication between the client and the testing team, and in overall it increases the efficiency of the engagement. And here is how it adds value, several bullet points. So it's a client-facing portal and secure communication. It means that our clients can go to the portal anytime they want and see results. And secure access controls ensure clients can only see their data, their own data. And as I told, it's a centralized hub for all engagements in one place. So it holds a history of all performed activities, which you can review anytime. It provides continuous engagement and real-time visibility. So you can go to the portal and request a new engagement. It will pop up on our site. We will review it and schedule the activity. And also you can see results of the testing in real time. So you don't need to wait for the final report. It increases efficiency of the engagement by streamlining the reporting phase because of some automatization in the reporting phase. Now it takes less time. And also, in addition, PTaaS portal has integration with the security tools and ticketing tools. So if you have Jira or ServiceNow, for example, we can set this. We can set up this integration, and once we report a new finding on the portal, it will appear on your side, and responsible team can start the remediation process. And also, of course, it's evidence-based testing and retesting. So each finding has description, severity level, evidence of exploitation, and recommendations on the remediation steps. One of the cool things that I really love in our PTaaS portal, it's remediation tracking. Each vulnerability has the status. It can be opened, closed, or reopened. And our clients can control this status manually. So you can go to the portal and change the status of vulnerability once it's remediated. Or if we have the configured integration with Jira and ServiceNow, this status will be automatically updated once you change it on your side. I think this is the highlights of benefits, and now we can go to the demo. I need to share my screen. But Brian, Brian, you need to allow me to share the screen.
Yep, I'll do that now. 1 second.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Nice. So PTaaS portal welcomes you with the dashboard, which has some summary on trends and discovered vulnerabilities, closed vulnerabilities, and also their severity status. So, for example, this dashboard shows you that the trends, how the number of open and in process findings changed within the time. So you can control the time frame. So, for example, you would like to see the progress within 12 months. Also, it shows you the findings associated with assets, depends on their criticality, and it also splits the fund by severity and remediation status. This dashboard collects information from all engagements, not only from one, but all engagements. So how the client can work with the PTaaS portal? As I mentioned before, each client has isolated space. It means that the client can see only own results. But in addition, each client can have several, let's call them sub-clients or units inside this portal to split results, for example, between different teams. So development team 1 can have access only to their results, and development team 2 will not be able to see these results, but they can see their reports. So we can set the access controls to provide different teams with different level of access. So on the clients tab, we can see that, for example, in our case, we have 2 sub-clients, demo client and test client. So to see the results to see the results for each particular client, we just need to click on this client, and now we see the list of reports, list of completed engagements. And this is the overview for the client, for the team. And we have several tabs here. So the first one shows us the list of completed engagements. There is a findings tab that shows us the full list of discovered vulnerabilities from all completed engagements. So we have assets, we have details. So it's a dashboard. Again, it's a dashboard, but with the high-level summary for this particular team only. Because the first dashboard that I showed before, it was a summary of all for all teams and all completed engagements. And it has the number of opened and closed findings, and it splits everything by severity level. So it's very easy to check everything here. And if we want to investigate, for example, one of the completed reports, let's go to the this penetration test report. So we just need to click on it, and now we see the list of discovered findings here. So we have here the finding title, severity, and status of this finding. To get more details, and also, of course, you can search. So if we have several pages of findings, you can you have a search field, so you can search by title. You can filter them by status. So you would, for example, you would like to see only open findings. You can set up these additional filters here. And if you would like to get more details about the finding itself, you just need to click on it. And in this window, you can see more detailed description of this finding. You can see evidence, CVSS score, affected targets, and our recommendations how it can be resolved. You can do this the same step for each finding. So if we click on a SQL injection, so it will show you relevant information about this finding. Let's imagine that you remediated some of this finding, and you can control the status from this web UI. It's very easy. You just need to click here and add update. So, for example, it was closed. It was fixed, because the platform also allows us to use different substatuses. Finding can be closed in different way. It can be fixed, mitigated, accepted, or it can be a false positive. So let's imagine it was fixed, and you can put your comment here. And after this, this change will appear on the screen. Also, PTaaS portal shows us the history of such changes. So if I click, for example, on this one, we can see the full history of all changes relevant to this finding here. If we have configured integration between PTaaS portal and Jira or ServiceNow, you can control the status there, and it will be updated automatically here in PTaaS portal. And when we change the status in PTaaS portal, it will be updated on Jira or ServiceNow site automatically. Also, in each report, we have assets tab, so it shows us all affected assets in one place. You can click on the asset and you can see associated findings with this asset. And artifact section, we usually use it for file exchange, so the client can upload any documents or files here, for example, some network diagram or documentation about the application, and the tester will receive it. And in addition, after the completion of the engagement, we also generate the PDF report, and we attach it to the portal, so you can download it. And if you need to show results of the activity to any internal auditor, for example, or any third party, so you can take this PDF report and share with third parties. On the and I think that's it about one last thing, readout section. Forgot about it. Readout section also shows us the executive summary and parameters of the testing and conditions of the testing, limitations of the testing. So we put here the high-level summary about the results, limitations or issues which appear during the testing, and some strategic recommendations. You can find here details about the testing team and the testing methodology. All this information also will be inserted in the PDF report. The second valuable point on the PTaaS portal is the scheduler. Scheduler allows our clients to request new engagements. So, for example, each client has this calendar view, and here we can see requested, scheduled, or completed engagements. We can easily differentiate them by the color. So green means that it was completed, orange in review. This one is scheduled, so we can see the status here, and this is pending request which was not reviewed. So why do we need to have the scheduler? The client can go here and request a new engagement. We can do a test request now. So, for example, we would like to perform something next month. So to do this, we just need to click on this request engagement button, and we need to fill this form. It's very easy to do this with the additional information. So so we would like to perform web application PT. Here we can choose the team and desired dates. Let's start on the 9th of June, and it will be 1 week activity. We need to choose also the test window. So we would like to perform our test during business hours. And here we need to specify the test type. So it will be web pen test, a web application pen test. Here the client can specify some objectives of the testing. So we would like to make focus on the authentication testing and specify the scope. And here we will explain how we will send the credentials. And in the last field, we can specify any additional supportive information, or we would like to put some restrictions for this engagement. We don't want to perform denial of service attacks. Then we need to click on continue, and on this last window we can attach some additional files like documentation about this web application, for example. And after this we can submit the request. So this pop-up window notifies you that your dedicated service delivery manager will review this request, and we will allocate resources on our side to deliver this engagement. Once it will be approved, you can understand this in two ways. So first of all, you will get the email notification that your engagement was approved and scheduled. Another way to do this, this notification center, it shows you all changes on your engagement request. So if it was scheduled or canceled, for example, by any reasons. We can go now to June, and we see that this engagement appeared here, and it's in pending status because the service delivery manager needs to accept it and allocate resources. In this way, we streamline the communication between the client and our side. The client can go here, choose the desired days for the activity, and send this request. And this automatization will help our service delivery managers to plan the activity and allocate resources faster. The last useful section on the PTaaS portal is analytics module. Analytics module actually allows you to collect information about the findings, about the discovered findings in a flexible way. So you can configure here filters. Let's imagine that we would like to see only critical and high severity statuses, and only opened and in process vulnerabilities. And this module will collect this information for you. You can save this preset and reuse later if you need. And on this page now we can see that we have 11 opened vulnerabilities. 2 vulnerabilities are under remediation. 5 of them of critical status, 8 are high severity level, and we can see all of them here in one table. Yeah, and you can click on each of them and get more details about this vulnerability. So this is that's it about the PTaaS portal. In summary, it allows us to streamline the engagement process, make it faster and more friendly for clients, which have access, which can access it anytime, see real-time results, and request new activities.
Brilliant.
So,
thank you very much, Dima.
yeah.
It's very sort of details and in depth. So it just leaves us to come to, or for myself to really summarize and bring some of the conclusions to light. So I think as we saw, penetration testing remains a critical security activity that needs to be done ongoing. And those traditional pen tests, have some challenges: scoping, test gaps, inflexibility. We've got some challenges there. Really, anyone that's organized a penetration test, you have to go through that process: scoping, quoting, PO, approval to get that going, and then being able to schedule that in. But penetration testing as a service really goes beyond that. Obviously, we can overcome some of those challenges with the ability to have a subscription that on-demand testing without any of those limits. But I think most importantly, as Dima kind of walked through there, it really brings a full platform approach that joins it all together, that goes well beyond a PDF report. I think a PDF report is great, and it's there and available to satisfy auditors, to provide to senior management. But I'd also say it's the thing that stood in the way of us actually making a dent in a lot of our exposures. So really bringing that full end-to-end vulnerability exposure management platform that not just looks at reporting, but the active management. So driving, through those analytics, through the reports, being able to dive down into those detailed findings, allows organizations to drive towards really impacting positively their exposures overall. So really, consider it for, particularly where you've got ongoing requirements. Anybody that's doing web app testing, web app creation, it's a must to be able to make that ongoing. But I would advise and encourage any organization to move away from the sort of limited annual, biannual, to make it a ongoing, continuous testing approach. So that's kind of the summary. We do have some questions on the Q&A, so we'll try and rattle through these pretty quick because we are approaching time. So the first question we have in is a question on the approach to testing. So are these automated or manual pen tests performed against domains or IP ranges? And I think you showed some of that, Dima, and just talked about it. But and the other part of that question is, can they be performed against private cloud environments? So actually internal to that cloud and not just outside.
Let me answer on this question. So our testing methodology includes both manual and automatic tests. So we think that each of these approach has benefits and disadvantages. That's why we combine all of them into one process. So some of the checks are performed in automatic way using different tools, depends on the target type. But we also, on top, we usually put the human-led testing. So we have professionals that review each target in manual way. And there is no limitation on the testing vector, so we can do tests against external targets, internal targets in private cloud, in cloud environment. So we just need to agree on the connectivity way, how we can reach the targets, but we can deliver everything. Yeah.
And I think that's probably an important consideration for pen testing as a service when making that kind of selection. Yes, many can do external, automated, or even human-led, but I think it's important that you bridge that gap which is something that we can do in terms of gaining that access to do the internal penetration tests, so not being surface level. There's a couple of questions around a similar topic. One, does it not get expensive to run pen tests more continuously? And the other part is, can we kind of reference or show, demonstrate the cost difference between pen testing as a service and traditional pen tests? Brian, I don't know if you want to take that one.
Sure thing, yeah. So as I mentioned, pen testing as a service is a subscription service. So there are efficiencies to be gained by running it as a service throughout the year rather than once-off engagements. You don't have the same cost overheads with startup and engaging and understanding the environment and whatnot. So it's definitely basically what I would say is that you get more coverage, more continuous coverage and more scope coverage for a similar or modest uplift on what you would traditionally do, which are more infrequent standalone project-based pen testing. The additional benefits would include that you can spread that cost throughout the year. So you don't necessarily have to pay for it all up front. You could pay for it throughout the year. And then also, because of the nature of the subscription model, it's possible to get access to additional benefits. For example, many providers such as ourselves offer free retesting and additional tests, added benefits like complimentary phishing campaign for certain levels of service and things like that that you just won't get when you're buying once off. So I don't have an exact kind of percentage comparison because it's hard to compare them directly, but the goal is not to have a massive uplift in budget, but at the same time get way better and continuous coverage.
So increased value, I think, is the summary answer there.
Exactly.
So we've got one question about, can we share the PowerPoint? Yes, we'll provide that, and obviously we also deliver these on demand for playback, and I think the details of that will be sent in the follow-up. And so last question before we wrap up, and Dimi, you might have covered this when you talked through it, but when do findings show up in the portal? Is it at the end, or are there interim findings available? Is it more ongoing?
When the findings pop up on the platform,
yes.
Could you please repeat? I didn't get. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So it's the question is, when do the findings show up on the? If an engagement is ongoing. Is it at the end of the engagement, or is there any interim delivery of findings?
No, it's not the end. As I told before, clients can check the results in real time. So once we discover something, it will be published on the portal, and we will continue our engagement. But the client's team can start the remediation process and change the status of vulnerability once it will be mitigated or remediated, and we can proceed with the retesting of this vulnerability.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, there's another, I guess, difference between standard, traditional pen testing with a PDF report and pen testing as a service with that very much platform-based delivery that is effectively a live view into the tests that are being done, which can inform the testing. And also, part of that subscription model allows, the kind of retest request against it so that they can confirm that it's been actually closed. So I think that really, enables us to, as I say, impact positively our levels of exposure. So that's it for the Q&A, I think. Let me just double check there's no other questions in. Actually, sorry, there was one question that's come in during this, but I tell you, in the interest of time, we'll answer that on a follow-up. if that's okay. We also have a number of upcoming webinars talking about deepfakes and AI manipulation. We're going to do a breakdown lessons learned of some of those very topical UK and impactful ransomware incidents that we've seen, and then also touch into detection response and giving our view on what matters when navigating today's cyber threat in terms of choosing the correct MDR service, the meet your requirements. And I think lastly then just we have our security for those that have joined us in South Africa. We have our Security First conferences. So we've completed our European run, and now we're delivering those next week in Johannesburg and Cape Town. Please scan the QR code and register now. It's a great event that really brings people from across the industry, experts together to deliver insights on cybersecurity. And we're focusing specifically on balancing the human cyber equation, which we'll answer at the conference. So that's it from myself. I want to say thank you to Dima and Martin. Dima and Brian for joining us today and joining me and help answer that question. And also thank you to all of our attendees that joined today. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.